Okay, I'm gonna try to explain the traffic stop, some of where I went wrong, the premises behind your right to travel. It's a positive right, guaranteed under the Constitution of the United States. It's a federally protected right. That's what I argue. I don't try to use their statutes, codes, ordinances. I don't answer with any of that crap. Most people have a misconception of what the Constitution is. The Constitution, in and of itself, is just a contract. Okay, it's a social contract wherein the government agrees to govern in a certain fashion, and we agree to be governed in that fashion. There's a couple maxims in law that tell you how the Constitution is to be interpreted. One says that a contract is to be interpreted in favor of the clearly intended and expressed beneficiary. As one of the people, well, we're the beneficiaries. So it's to be interpreted in our favor. Another one says that a contract is to be interpreted in favor of the non-preparer. And as any of us walking around right now know, we weren't around when that sucker was signed, so we're not a party to it. We didn't prepare it, so it's to be interpreted in our favor for that too. So according to well-settled law, that's basically what maxims are, by the way, are things that are pretty much well-settled in law. You shouldn't have to argue them, but you will. You'll have to stand on them. You'll have to know where you're coming from. But according to well-settled law, the Constitution is to be doubly interpreted in your favor. Our mistake over the years has been letting others interpret it for us. Nowhere in the Constitution will you find your right to travel. It's not in there. But I can show you over and over where the Supreme Court says that your right to travel is a liberty right. It is your right under your liberty, your freedom, freedom of movement, freedom of locomotion, your right to go where and when you want, as long as you're not messing with anybody else. It's very well settled, okay? Now there's oodles and oodles of Supreme Court rulings that talk about your right to travel, your right to locomotion, etc., etc. The one I like to use is Shapiro versus Thompson. It says the right to travel in the people is so inherent that it need not even be mentioned. So it is a positive right. The Supreme Court of the United States agrees that it's your right. So this isn't something that you're just pulling out of thin air and saying, oh, well, I got the right to go where and when I want, as long as I'm not hurting anybody else. No, the Supreme Court agrees with you. Well, the way rights work, okay, Miranda versus Arizona says that where a right protected by the Constitution is involved, it can't be abrogated. That simply means that it can't be taken away. Ever, period. There's no subheading under which it can be taken away, so it is not allowed to be taken away. So if you can demonstrate that this was a right at one time, and we know it was. Look at what your great-great-great-great-granddaddy was allowed to do, man. He'd run back and forth where and when he wanted. He'd hitch up the team to the sled or the wagon, whatever, throw the family in the back and go to town when he wanted. You know, that's his private business. All this driving crap is commercial. But anyway, Miranda versus Arizona says they can't take your right away. So if it was right at one time, it's still your right today. Murdoch versus Pennsylvania says that a right may not be converted into a privilege and a license and fee issued therefore. It's clearly unconstitutional. And then it goes on further to state that placing a fee on a right is like placing a tax on a right, and it tends to inhibit a right. And it's also unconstitutional for that reason. Well, if you break that down, what it's saying is they can't issue a license for a right. They can't issue any type of fee or tax for a right. And they're not allowed to do anything that would tend to inhibit the free exercise of your right. So basically what we've got going on here is they've taken your right to travel, converted it into a privilege, called it driving, issued a license and a fee for it, which is clearly unconstitutional per Miranda versus Arizona and Murdoch versus Pennsylvania. Article 6, Clause 2 of the Constitution says basically that this Constitution and the laws and treaties made in pursuance thereof, that means they're made in pursuit of the ideals of that Constitution. Okay, so this Constitution and the laws and treaties made in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land. Supreme, the utmost, the top. Nothing else trumps it, okay? So if something that you're running into out there doesn't line up with what that Constitution says and your interpretation of it, it's got to be a logical interpretation. You just can't say, oh, the Constitution gives me the right to go up and down the road at 150 miles an hour. No, that's not your right, man. You're endangering people. You don't have the right to be a complete and total friggin' idiot and run around recklessly. But anything unconstitutional is null and void of law from its inception. It bears no power to enforce, and no citizen is obligated to obey it. That's Marbury versus Madison. And then Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham backs that up by saying that if they do somehow get a hold of one of your rights and they convert it into a privilege, well, you can ignore that fake privilege and you can enjoin in your right with impunity. That means they cannot punish you. Although they'll try. You better know what you're doing. I'm not suggesting you just throw your license in the trash today and start trying to do what I do. You'd better know what you're doing a little bit. They don't just give it to you, man. In today's day and age, the way things are going, if you want your rights, you take them. And Malcolm X said famously back in the day, a free man doesn't ask for his rights, he takes them. You know, he doesn't ask for his freedoms. But you just got to understand that your rights end where another man's begins. And his rights end where yours begin. Nobody has any authority within your rights as long as you're not harming anybody else. So that's all about all I've got on that for right there. Now for the traffic stop, I messed up. I've become too comfortable with the different police forces in this area. I've dealt with Scappoose Municipal, St. Helens Municipal. I've been to the circuit court. The state police have pulled me over. Sheriff's office, Columbia County Sheriff's Office, whatever. Over the past almost 5 years now, they've chose not to give me any tickets. They gave me one almost 5 years ago, and I went in and beat it. And my paperwork has come a long way since then, let me tell you. I actually enjoy going into court. I learn a whole lot from it each time. But there's a lot of people say don't even go in. They avoid it. They try to do paperwork to get out of going in and everything. But I like to go in and argue with them. I like to argue. Well, when I'm right anyway. I can't admit I'm wrong now and then. Getting off track here a little bit. But the traffic stop was messed up. What I would normally do is if they have their emergency lights on, okay, I know for a fact I'm not involved in any type of emergency situation. I haven't run anybody over, nobody's gone squealing off the road because of some idiotic action of mine. An emergency in law is defined as something so dire to life, limb, and property that it requires immediate remedy. In layman's terms, something is about to get screwed up right now, or the likelihood of it becoming screwed up right now is so high that I need to step in and fix it. That's the basic definition of an emergency. So, how does your tail light fall under that definition? You know, a headlight being out, or like this traffic stop here. The reason he used to follow me to the church was my license plate light was out. You know, okay, great. None of those things are an emergency. He's running emergency lights. And they're not allowed to do it. It's a felony. It's the same as you or me walking into a crowded movie theater, pulling the fire alarm, screaming fire, and it's called inciting a public panic. There's plenty of instances of people crashing just because they're trying to see what's going on with somebody that's pulled over on the side of the road. You know, accidents cause accidents. People trying to look at an accident as they're going by, getting accidents. That's one of the reasons why they're not allowed to run these lights, just because they want to. You know, you don't just get to arbitrarily turn them on and have fun. Hey, I don't want to go, I don't want to stop for this light. Boom, hit the lights, woo woo, go. No, man, it's inciting a public panic and it's a felony. But what I'm trying to get to with that is the entire stop's dead just for that reason. It's well settled in law that if the stop starts bad, what comes after it's no good. Everything else is out. So there's a technicality you can use. I don't like to use it, but it can be done. I go in and I try to make my rights as understandable as I can to the court and to the people that may be in the gallery. I don't go in screaming about the name. Yeah, there's something screwy with the name. Some type of entity that they've created, whatever, this all caps name. I don't go there. It just sounds friggin' crazy. Okay? You got to present yourself to the court and to the gallery in a way so that when they go off, they look stupid. If you go up there in a good manner and present your case well, and the people can understand that, hey, wow, what this guy's saying actually makes sense. And then they turn around and they try to arrest you or tase you or the myriad of other things that they've got at their arsenal, you know, then they look bad. And the witnesses think so too. There's a whole lot that most people, when they're out there, they just don't understand. This has been kept from us. It's a hidden language that they use. Looks exactly like what you and I were taught in school, but words don't mean the same thing. The perfect example is the word understand. After all this I've spoken about, I could say, do you understand? And you'd say yes. Well, okay. In law, to understand doesn't mean to comprehend something. It isn't about knowledge. It's about your lack of knowledge. Because understand in law means to stand under or be in agreement with. So the moment the judge asks you, do you understand? You're screwed. If you say yes because you think he's asking if you understand what's going on here, that's not it. He's asking, do you understand the charges I'm about to bring against you? You know, are you in agreement with the charges I'm about to bring against you? And it's a ploy to gain jurisdiction where there is none. It's all done through contract. What he's trying to trick you into contracting with him is what he's doing. But he's using another language to do it. The law is supposed to be understandable at a 7th grade level. But not when 7th graders are told that Webster's defines words, and then when you step into a courtroom, words don't mean what you were taught. It's a completely and totally unfair advantage. If you decide to do something like this, it's going to take you a little while. You aren't going to get it right off the bat. And you got to come at it with the right mental attitude. You go into court guilty-minded because you think you're doing something wrong, judge will eat you. You'll come out of there with no tail feathers, I promise. You got to know who you are and that what you're doing is right. You know, it's called a guilty mind. In law, it's called mens rea. And it'll get you, brother. It'll get you. That still small voice, you know. A lot of people call it a conscience. It'll screw you up if you're doing wrong, man. So, I don't know. I figure I'd just try to put out this little bit of video here. Maybe it'll help somebody out. Any questions or whatever, you can look me up on Facebook or post a question underneath this or something. I don't know. I'm not much up on the technology stuff. I just know my law a little bit. But y'all have a good one. Good luck and God bless.